Hi everyone. Today's book review was inspired by the topic of tennis. I wanted to focus mainly on people of African descent who are tennis players. So today is July 10th, and it is the birthday of Arthur Ashe. He was a black tennis player who died of, I believe it was AIDS, due to a blood transfusion. And tomorrow, July 11th, is the anniversary of the Wimbledon title, the 21st Wimbledon title of Serena Williams. So the book that I have selected for you is Sisters and Champions, the story, or the true story, of Venus and Serena Williams. And it was written by Howard Bryant and illustrated by Floyd Cooper. So one of the reasons that I gravitated towards this book was because it was illustrated by Floyd Cooper, and I don't know how many books of his that he's illustrated and written that I've read, but it's a lot. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the publisher, the author, and the illustrator, and then we'll get straight into the book review. So the publisher is Penguin Random House, and it was published in 2018. The imprint that Penguin Random House published through was Philomel, which translates into lover of song. So the purpose of books published by this imprint is that they should be lyrical, beautiful concepts, and should be fine enough to be celebrated as gifts. I had to write it down. So I believe that this would make a beautiful gift for somebody, and it is very lyrical as well. I read this book to a group of 5 to 8-year-olds on Monday. Every Monday until July 22nd, I have been reading to 2 groups of children, and they absolutely loved this book. They asked a lot of questions. So if you're a teacher, educator, parent, or librarian, and you have children in your life, then this would be the perfect book for them. Anyway, about the author, Howard Bryant. This is a picture of the author. See? And it says in his bio, Howard Bryant is the author of 3-book Legends sports series for middle grade readers: baseball, football, and basketball. He is a senior writer for ESPN.com and ESPN, the magazine, and in 2016 was a finalist for the National Magazine Award and winner of the 2016 Salute to Excellence Award from the National Association of Black Journalists. He also serves as the sports correspondent for NPR's Weekend Edition Saturday, and his Twitter is @hbryant42, and his website is www.howardbryant.net, which I will post in the link below. When I searched him up online, I didn't know his website was listed in the book. But when I first went to his website, I was very confused because I said, am I at the wrong place? This says ESPN. But it turns out it was him. When you go there and you click on My Work, underneath My Work, it will say books. And you will see that he has a couple of children's books, and he also has a couple of adult books, and most of them focus mainly on what's going on in sports and the Black presence in sports. Now, as far as the children's books, this is the only one I've seen that concentrates mainly on young ladies. So that is why I particularly like this book. The next person is Floyd Cooper, one of my favorite illustrators. Here he is, looking all cool. Floyd Cooper. Floyd Cooper always dreamed of becoming an artist and has now illustrated dozens of books for children. He received a Coretta Scott King Award for his illustrations in The Blacker the Berry, which I read, and Coretta Scott King honors for his illustrations in Brown Honey and Broom Wheat Tea, which I also read, and I Have Heard of a Land. He lives in New Jersey with his family. His Twitter is @FloydCooper4, and his website is www.floydcooper.com. Now, I've read a couple of his books and read a couple of books illustrated by him. There's Ma Deer's Aprons. There's, what else was there? Max and the Tagalong Moon. The Blacker the Berry, which is a beautiful, beautiful book that has poems in it, and it has all of these children with different skin colors, shades of brown. It goes from like dark to like Snow White. It's so beautiful. You have to read that book, and I'll have to review it in the future. So when you go to his website, you will see that he has different illustrations. He's illustrated, I guess, over 96 books, or he's done over 96 illustrations. He also was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where Black Wall Street was. So I wonder if he was inspired by any of the events that happened with Black Wall Street. So now I will get into my book review. The book starts off just basically telling about the beginnings of Venus and Serena Williams. And the opening page is of them with their dad. And this is a very, very powerful, powerful image. Like, look at how little they are in comparison to him. Their dad is their whole world. So it starts off, no one ever laughed at Richard Williams, at least not to his face. When he told people about Venus and Serena and the special things his two daughters would do, they would wait for him to leave, and then they would laugh, because he had said the impossible. Now, I particularly like this illustration because sometimes you'll look through books and you don't see a very strong Black father figure. They're beginning to put it in books more, but when I was a child, I had to truly search for that Black father figure in books. And Serena and Venus, they lived in Compton, which was in Los Angeles. I've never been to Los Angeles, never been to Compton, but I don't know if it's still like it was back when they were children, because I've never been there, but it was a particularly rough neighborhood. In fact, it says in the book, a real tough, sometimes scary part of Los Angeles. So you have this strong father figure and his two impressionable daughters in a bad environment. Anything could go wrong. If they did not have this father figure in their life, who knows where they would have been. Now their mother, she already had, 3 other daughters. So they had 3 older sisters. One of the sisters owned a hair salon, and she was murdered in 2002. So one of their sisters had passed, and the father also had children from another marriage. So the father had children from another marriage. The mother had children from her late husband, and then they had Venus and Serena together. And he also has another child who was born in 2012. So you have this blended family in the hood. This man has a dream, and his 2 daughters are there. So when I looked up on Wikipedia, and I don't know if I can trust this source, it says that he was inspired to put them in tennis after he saw a tennis player, Virginia Ruzici, she's from Romania, win a game or a trophy, or win Wimbledon or something. She won something. And he wrote a 78-page plan. So when they were 3 and 4 and a half, like very young children, he put them in tennis. He started to train them in tennis. And I notice a lot of the times, I'm in the United States, but most of the times I'll notice when a parent puts their child in something that young, most of the parents I've seen have been from out of the country. Like I've seen out of the country parents putting their child in piano at like age 2, ballet at like 1 year old, and other things, playing the violin, doing martial arts, learning a trade. They start them very early because at that age you can learn multiple skills and it becomes second nature to you. You can learn multiple languages and it becomes second nature to you. They're forward thinking. They're trying to get one generation further than the next. And this was the plan that Venus and Serena's dad had for them. It also states in the book that they were always being laughed at. And which is funny because I read that in another book. I read another children's book about them, and that book also mentioned the laughing. But it says they laughed because they were black. They laughed because they were impoverished, which is another thing, because there are certain sports where I guess your social status is associated with the sport. One being like lacrosse, fencing, other different things. I feel like black people, the society has pigeonholed us as far as sports. You have them saying, oh, you're going to be a basketball player. It's like basketball, football, or depending on which country you're in, soccer. Soccer here, football, wherever they are. But I've never seen people think of a black person when they think of golf, or in the past they didn't, because it was mostly a white man's sport, elitist white man's sport, golf. And you had Charlie Parker help with that, like help to integrate golf. So there's people laughing, gathering around, laughing at these two young, beautiful black children. Look at them, they're so pretty. And it says the girls were so different. Venus was quiet, competitive, protective, just like a big sister. Serena was forceful, stubborn, and even more competitive, just like a little sister. So the book mainly focuses on like their relationships as sisters. I am an only child, so I'll never have the chance to understand that bond of growing up with a sibling, but I could feel it resonating from this book. They worked together, they did everything together, they were spending every single day together. They grew up to be champions together. They competed against one another. They became very best friends. But let me see. What was I about to say? I forgot what it was about. So it says, when Venus was 12 and Serena 10, the family moved to Florida. So it shows them with their coach. And I thought that was a very interesting fact, because a lot of parents will not make the sacrifices that need to be made in order for their children to succeed. When you hear those stories of those star athletes that were in dire situations, you either hear like whether they were from the hood, whether they're from a war-torn country, they would not stop at anything. Nothing could stop them from being champions. And sometimes they would have to relocate. They'd have to leave the country. Sometimes they'd have to work and train at the same time. You had Gabby Douglas, the Olympic gymnast. She had to live with a whole nother family. You have children right now playing barefoot on concrete, kicking rocks, preparing to be the next star soccer/football player right now as we speak. So it's basically the sacrifices you make, especially as a parent. You put in the training, you put in the work to carve your child into a champion. Because at the end of the day, your child is the most important investment. You see all of these money they spend on trainers, they got all of that back, honestly. They might have spent $100 for a trainer, $100 a day. Now you got $100,000. All of your daughters are rich. And they're getting richer. Because Serena's doing her, what is she doing? Her media brand ambassador thing going on. She's doing all sorts of things. She has her husband, he's rich. She has her baby, the baby's rich. Like, everybody's just rolling in money. Yeah. So it says, the sisters were different. Their skin was different. Their hair was different. And Venus was tall, really tall. Yeah, they needed to stand out. I mean, they were already standing out anyway because they were young girls, but even when they dressed up for the tennis matches, they stood out because they had the beads in their hair, they had their cute little outfits on, and you got haters in the stands, but their dad truly trained them not to be haters, not to listen to the haters. There was one account I read where he paid a group of children to lash out and call them the worst names that they had ever been called. So that way, I don't know if it was in here or another book. So that way, when people were calling them names, it really wouldn't have any effect on them. And it reminded me of an interview that I saw on Facebook with, I want to say it was Serena, but don't quote me on that. It was one of the sisters, and they were young. They must have been under 14 years old. And the interviewer was white, and he kept trying to pry into this child's mind about, like, why do you think you're a champion? But he was forming his questions so it wouldn't look like it was racist, even though the essence of it was racist. And her father stopped him in the middle of the interview and just went completely off on him and was like, this is a star athlete. She is a champion. She's going to surpass me and you. Nobody's going to remember you. She's going to be richer than both of us. And that is very good because it's important. It's important that they had their dad there. Their dad was their coach. They had other coaches, but their dad was their primary coach, you know, and he knew how a person's view of his child could affect their self-esteem. He knew how this interviewer's perception of his child could influence the perception of other people in regards to his child. If that makes any sense. So that's why he nipped it in the bud. You might have a star champion and somebody says one thing that messes up their performance. Such as an example, I don't know which sister it was, but when one of them found out that their sister, the one I mentioned earlier, had been murdered, it basically interrupted her style during her game. But of course it would. It's a very tragic loss. But just hearing bad news like that, just imagine hearing people name calling you all the time. It seeps into your subconscious mind and can have a profound impact on you. That's why you got to drown it out. No one laughs at the girl's father anymore because his dream was becoming real. Venus was only 14 years old when she turned professional. And this is funny because one of them was beaten by a 15-year-old recently. And I thought that was kind of cool because it's like cycle of life. Like, you were the teenager, now this person is the teenager, passing on the torch of championship to another young black athlete. But this also goes to show that you're never too young to be a champion. I think people are beginning to realize that no matter what your age, especially if you're young, oh my gosh, I got one blank. No matter what your age, especially when you are young, there is no excuse for you not to be at the top. There's no excuse for you to not do your best. I believe people really underestimate children. They'll get shocked when there's like, oh my gosh, a child built this? Oh my gosh, a child painted that? I'm like, number one, a child is not a child that long. In the span of your life, you're not a child that long. Maybe like 18 years. I would say like 20 years based on this country, but whatever. You're really not a child that long. You have all of this time to hone your talents. You have all of this time to accelerate at the pace that you desire to accelerate. I have seen children that read like 30-year-olds and they're 3 years old. It all depends on how much time and investment and who's investing in you. And their daddy invested in it. Bam! So in the book, it talks about the obstacles that they went through, mainly because of health issues and physical issues. So Venus had a disease, and it did not mention what the disease was in this book, but it basically took away her strength. It took away her strength, so she would get very tired easily. And when you're playing tennis, you gotta be on your feet. You gotta be all the time, like running, full of energy. And then Serena had a foot injury and issues with her lungs, so she wound up missing a full year and lost her #1 ranking. But of course, they didn't let this stop them. So they both overcame their physical issues and they went back on to being champions. And at the end of the book, it shows the importance of family. A lot of people couldn't get to different places without their family. Sometimes you'll hear those rags to riches stories of people like, I did it all by myself. But you know what? Your family's there to help you. There's always a mentor. There's always a parent there pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing you to be the best because they can foresee the future to strengthen you. My mother, she pushed me. She always encouraged me to do my art. She always encouraged me to write. And here I am doing my art, illustrating books. She got all of the mentors that I needed around me, even though she didn't really have mentors like that when she was younger. And she may not have known about the art world as much, but the mentors that she provided for me knew about this world and were able to take me further than she would have taken me. So I really enjoyed this book. I highly recommend it if you have a young person in your life who just wants to be a champion in general or who is involved in any sports. I like that the illustrator has them as children, because the children can see themselves at this age now and know that they can start working and developing their talents now, right now, as we speak. So thank you all for watching this video, and I will be back with another book review. Bye-bye.